Welcome everyone to our Industry Insight hosted by Discover Creative Careers. I'm Chris. I'm from Cockpit Studios. I'm the youth and community programmer producer for Cockpit. Just to open up, I'll tell you a little bit about Cockpit for those who aren't familiar. We're a leading center for craft and a hugely diverse cluster of makers. We have two sites in London, one in Deptford, one in Bloomsbury, and we're hosting you at our Bloomsbury site virtually today. We have over 160 independent makers across all of our studio spaces, and that ranges from everything from textiles, ceramics, fashion, architecture, every kind of making, metalwork, you name it, we host it here. But we also host our makers with business support and coaching that allows them to build their businesses and take their work and their talents to the public. Specifically, we have a Make It program, which is designed to give emerging makers under 26 both space and business support to build their craft businesses. And that's a very successful program that provides emerging makers with 2 years of business coaching and studio space support. And more broadly, we work with hundreds of more makers across the UK through these types of career programs, through hosting events, feeding into the sector. And we're really pleased and proud to be sharing our work with you today as part of our relationship with Discover Creative Careers. Just to give you a sense of the scale, we're a small team and small site, but we host currently 166 makers. We're widely representative with 21 disciplines and working very hard to ensure that our community of makers is representative of London and the world we live in, always working to do more to improve pathways into craft for makers from all different backgrounds. We've got a real mix, the larger groups being jewelry, textiles, and ceramics. And you'll hear from makers with experience in those areas today. I won't talk through all the stats on the screen, but a really important part of our work is ensuring that makers have the coaching and support needed to take their work to market, sort of turning those talents into businesses. And so I've put some stats on here to highlight the roots and just remind people of the important contribution that craft and making makes to our economy, to our culture, and to our relations in global markets. That's all in terms of slides for me today. We are just getting ready to have your first studio visit. So I'll turn over and introduce Tessa Eastman, who is one of the many makers here at Cockpit Bloomsbury, and she will give you an insight into her studio and making practice. Thanks. Over to you, Tessa.
Thank you so much, Chris. Hello, everybody. My name's Tessa Eastman. I am a ceramic artist and a teacher as well. I'll show you my work first so you can put it a bit into context, and then I'll talk about my background and how I got to where I am today. So this is my studio. You can see a board of kind of inspiration here. Above it are some glaze tests with various colours and textures. My work is sort of, I call it very sensual. I'm very interested in texture and colour. They're sculptures. Here you can see one here, a very mini one. This is called Pollinating Creature because it's based on a magnified version of a pollen seed. And you can see the texture, the crewel glaze, which is glazes that I've specially developed on the piece. I'll show you just one more so you can see different variations. This is called a ladder to cloud. These are very mini pieces. The bigger pieces would fill the screen, so this is clearer for you to see. Again, you can see the texture and I'm interested in colour. And of course, you can see the ladder that holds the cloud above it. So I am 40 years of age, nearly 40, just turning 40 in January, and I have been doing ceramics since I was 6. I was not very happy at school and struggled a lot with academics and writing, and I am dyslexic, and I was very lucky to have a pottery studio within the school, and had a lovely teacher as well, and she was very generous with her time. So I'd spend a lot of time making things and being in the pottery studio. So I sort of thought I might do graphics or other things, but I sort of really knew that I loved ceramics, and I did keep my options open, but I sort of always just, whenever I had a choice to choose something, I always just chose ceramics. So I went from school to do an art foundation, and oh no, so yeah, no, so yes, I did an art foundation, exactly. And then I think that was a 1 year where it's very, you get to try lots of different things within art. And again, I did try lots of different things, painting, you know, textiles, all different things. But again, I chose ceramics. And then I had a nice group of people, and a few of us actually went together onto university, which is it's sad now actually, because there aren't many places to study ceramics. The places in London are Central St Martin's. I think that is the main university. Cardiff is very good in Wales. There are a few places, but the majority of them closed down when I was studying, because the cost of running a department with all the kilns and everything is quite expensive. And at that time, not many people wanted to do it. So now it is becoming more popular now. I think people now are, you know, are wanting to work more with their hands and not always be by a computer 24/7. So it is becoming more popular, and I feel very lucky because of that, because I have teaching jobs because of that. So I teach about 3 days a week, and I then am in the studio the other days. But actually, one thinks that one is making a lot, but there is a lot of other things involved in my work, and that involves, you know, a lot of communication with people, showing and selling my work, a lot of applying for things. Yeah, so you think you're just making all day, but one is not. There's a lot of other things involved, you know, transporting work, getting work photographed, yeah, communicating with people. So yeah, the making, it actually forms a smaller part than one would think. But yeah, so from my art foundation, I went on to a university that did ceramics, and I had a nice group of people there. And that was a 3-year course, a BA course. And I learned a lot. I went a lot deeper into the subject that I love, in terms of, you know, learning about glaze science, learning about, you know, I tried lots of different skills, like throwing, like making pots on the wheel, which is not what I do with my practice, but I feel very grateful that I got taught that, because it is a necessary thing now for teaching ceramics. So I'm quite an all-rounder, which is because of my studies and the amazing teachers that I had, which has really helped me in terms of teaching and you know, and also doing my own work. So then after the 3-year BA course, the undergraduate course, I had a big break, and I worked for an artist in France. She had a studio in the UK and also in France. So I went to France, and the reason I got that connection is because I'd worked for her doing some work experience over the summer. And so I worked for her there for a year, and that was extremely helpful, learning how one operates as a business. You know, she is quite a well-known, she was on the Pottery Throwdown on TV. She's quite a well-known maker, and I worked with her and learned a lot about how to run a business, how, you know, how you need to sort of think, you know, economically about what you're making, and is it viable, you know, how you're making it, could you make it more viable in terms of, you know, selling it, and you know, sometimes if you spend a long time on a piece, you know, can you sell it for the price that you need, or are you going to lose money? Is it worth, you know? So just thinking about all these things, and of course you know, getting better at making, because I was helping her make, and just seeing how she communicates with people, and all sorts of things, and seeing how she is, you know, organizing shows and events. So that was really helpful. And then I came back for a year. Do you know, I think I applied to do an MA, and I didn't get in first thing, which actually I think was a real blessing for me, because you know, going back into education is not always the right thing for a master's. I think for a master's, it was very helpful for me to have more experience in the outside world. So I managed to you know, find, because at that time there weren't many opportunities in terms of jobs for ceramics. Now I think there's a lot more, because there are a lot more studios now than there were then. So I was working in a school as an artist in residence, and I think that was very helpful for the school, because they had a kiln, but they didn't really know how to use it, or how to, you know, to manage clay, and the whole the cycle that, you know, you need to keep clay damp, otherwise it gets dry. You know, all these things these kind of things you need to do. So I helped a lot with that. I worked a lot with the kind of students who were yeah, I worked with all different levels of students, sometimes more with the students who were specializing in art, and sometimes those who are just doing it as a subject, and maybe looking to pursue it further. And I also ran some evening classes in the evening, and I worked with actually the gifted and talented. They were called the gifted and talented students, and we made a project for their chapel. They had a new chapel that was being made. So I worked there for that for, how many, I think I was there for about 6 years or so. And I then found also I was working alongside that job, a job as a technician. And through being a technician in a studio, I moved into teaching, which is what I do, how I earn. Actually, the majority of my income, I would say, comes from my teaching. I would say about 30% comes from my making. And I would say that if you love art, you have to really love it to want to do it. And I say that, yeah, it's something that takes time to build up. You can't just expect to be able to earn an income straight away. So it's something you need to, you grow your business, you grow it over time through your dedication to your work. And I think, you know, I think the benefits are that we're probably not earning as much as a lawyer would do, or somebody in business, but we love what we do. And I think that love is very, very important, and it spurs you on all the time. So yeah, so I do believe that, you know, I've heard artists saying that it takes them until they're about, you know, in their 40s or even 50s sometimes to actually start earning a good income. And I do believe that can come with continuous dedication. But I love the teaching, and the teaching helps me to become a better maker as well, because I'm having to, what I do very subconsciously through making, I'm having to communicate that to people, and to look at their hand skills, and to actually explain how you can use your hands to make something. And, you know, sometimes, especially with throwing on the wheel, you know, your hands are tools for making the pot. So, you know, you have to clearly describe how to place your hands, how to use your hands. So I feel that teaching and my making are very much intrinsic. They very much belong together and work well together. So I worked in in a technician, which led me to teaching, and then after working as an artist in residence and doing the technician job, and having worked for the artist in France, I went and applied for a second time to do a master's course, and I did get in. And I felt I was really ready for it and loved it. And I think if I'd gone earlier, straight after my undergraduate, I might not have been so ready, because sometimes I think it was helpful for me to have a break from education, and it was helpful to work in the real world, and then come in to do a master's as a bit more for a mature person. And that was 2 years. I do think master's courses now are becoming 1-year courses. Yeah, which sort of concerns me, because I feel like, you know, as a skill-based subject, you do need to learn things. But I think now there are so many opportunities with working for other artists, or, you know, working as assistants in studios, working as teaching assistants, working as all sorts of, there are many opportunities, and many different avenues to get into this career. I would say it's not like a sort of, you know, going into a specific career where there are kind of hoops to jump through. There are things that you're kind of led by the system. I think a career as an artist, you're very much finding your own way and what works for you. And you'll find today, actually, as you hear other people, we're all creatives, but the way we have a career is very different and unique. And we have kind of developed that through what we enjoy and what works well for us. And I think as an art career, there isn't such, you know, there aren't sort of boxes to tick to get you through. You sort of create your own career, so to speak. And I have artists who are, you know, very much very good at writing, unlike me, and are writing a lot to get funding applications and maybe work a lot in museums. And are making big projects for museums. So there are many different routes, but that is my route. And yeah, I love what I do. And yeah, sort of very much hope some of you will continue, if you're interested in art, continue that passion of yours. So I think, how am I doing for time, Chris?
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Tessa.
Yeah.
We'll have some time to come back for questions, but it's really helpful to hear your insights, and also your nice to hear you speaking openly about that balance of making and teaching and the different strings to your bow in terms of your practice. And I'm sure the balance of those will come through in some of what we hear next. So just a reminder, please put your questions in the Q&A as we go. Thank you, Tessa, and I'll pass over to Dalia next.
Hi, everyone. Like you said, my name is Dalia. I'm here based at Bloomsbury as well. This is my studio. Let me just give you a little rundown of everything. So I've got a lot of plants. It's just some of my work that I have on the wall. My pegboard, which I work a lot with watercolors before I start reading. And then I've got like this massive loom here. And then I got a smaller loom here. And then another small loom here. Yeah, it's a good size space. So I've got like three looms in it. And just to go back through my background, similar to Tessa, I went like the Art Foundation uni route, but slightly unconventionally. I actually wanted to do history, missed my history grade, then was going to retake it and then so I was like, oh, I'll do a gap year and take the exam again in the summer. And I'm from a creative background. My parents met at Cordwainers, which is now part of the London College of Fashion, but back in the 70s, it was like a technical college. So during my gap year, I decided to just do some life drawing classes and stuff because I was still under 19, it was all still free. And then the teacher, my life drawing class said, oh, you should really do the fine art A level. And I was like, no, it's just for a year, like I'll just, you know. But then he convinced me, so I did that for a year, and then I was like, okay, I don't want to do history anymore. I think I want to do fine art. So I went to Camberwell College of Arts to do my foundation, and then went to Loughborough University in the East Midlands to do textile design. And actually, I started doing printed textiles, but then really was way more interested in what the weavers were doing because we all shared a studio. So then I switched. So it's been a bit like switch. But I settled on weaving. So yeah, I did that for my course was 3 years. And then after uni, I kind of I bought a loom and I was just kind of doing my own thing. And I've always wanted to have my own practice. So I didn't want to go into industry because of a few of the people that I know who were graduated before me. They kind of got into a kind of, not a rut, but once you work full time and you're used to a certain income, it's then hard to kind of come back from that and kind of do your own thing and, you know, mortgages and stuff like that. So I was determined to kind of stay part-time and just doing kind of odd jobs, and then I was working in a museum and stuff. So, and then it wasn't, I graduated in 2012, which then you know how old I am. And then yeah, it wasn't really until the end of 2017 that I really just thought I wanted to just go for it and start my own practice. I was working full-time by that point in an interiors company, and I just really hated it. So I was like, I really don't want to come back after Christmas. So I handed in my notice, and then like my last day was like a few days before Christmas. So in 2018, I like set up my company and rented a studio, a very small studio in Hackney Wick, and was just kind of doing my own thing. And then I applied for the Crafts Council. Used to have a program called Hot House. It's changed now, but it's like a kind of business incubation kind of scheme, which runs for 6 months. So I did that, and that was really amazing because even though I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, I definitely knew what I didn't want to do. And I'd kind of gone there thinking I was going to make cushions and throws and things. And actually, I've never wanted to make those things. So that's just what weavers end up, if you go out on your own, that's what you kind of just end up doing. So yeah, so I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And then my cohort leader was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, what is it? And I was like, well, I've always kind of wanted to weave, to kind of create work that wasn't necessarily going to be made into anything that wasn't practical. And she basically just told me to just do it. So I was like, okay, I'll just see how it is. Because there weren't many weavers doing it. I think like at the time, the only weaver that I knew of who was doing kind of art pieces was Ptolemy Mann. And I was just like, well, if she's the only one, maybe it's just really, really hard to kind of do. And that's one of the reasons that kind of put me off. But after doing Hot House, I was just like, oh, well, I'll just kind of go for it and see. And actually the work was really well received, but then we had the pandemic. So so yeah, we were supposed to do a group show in 2020 with the people that I did Hot House with. But then obviously that didn't happen. But then we did do it the following year. And I was lucky enough to find a gallery to represent me called Cavaliero Finn, based here in London. And they sold like 2 pieces of my work in like a week or something. It was something really crazy. I was like, oh my God, this is insane. So like there's just kind of other things that I've been doing that have kind of just kept me progressing. So last year, was it last year? Yeah, it was last year. I don't know if anybody knows the brand Toast. They're like an ethical clothing brand, but they also each year support 5 craft people. And so I was picked for that last year. And then also last year, I applied to Cockpit for an award, the New Craft Award, and was awarded it. So that's why I'm here, and I'm just into my second year of the award. So I think I've just been, I wouldn't say my mentor says it's not luck, but it's kind of it's just kind of things that have kind of fallen into place, really. And so I, like Tessa, also do some teaching. So I run workshops, but I mainly work with other organizations. So I've worked with like the V&A East. I've run workshops for eyewear maker called Cubits. I also designed the lens cloth for them. And I've also done workshops for the John Ruskin Museum and Library, and yeah, so, and I will be doing one for Batsford Gallery in January. So, but it is something that I want to start doing myself. It's just like Tessa says, there's many hats, and actually there's lots of kind of paperwork and stuff that you have to do. So it's not, it does take time to kind of sit down and plan these things. But I really like teaching as well, and that's kind of something that I want to kind of do more in my practice. So I mainly work to commission at the moment, and then I do a few kind of projects and create new work for the gallery to show at fairs like Collect. But yeah, at the moment I'm doing a commission, so I'm just going to switch the camera view so you can see what I'm doing at the moment. Okay. But I'm just gonna put this technology problem at the moment. Okay, so at the moment I am doing something called denting. So all of these are called ends. So each thread is called an end, and they all need to go through one of these, which is a pedal, and there are separate shafts, and depending on which way you thread the ends, you can create various patterns. So after you've threaded each of the threads individually, and I think I've got like 1,800 and something threads on here. So it's taken a few days for me to get that far. But after that kind of section is done, you move on to denting, and this is called a reed, and it's what keeps the warp in place. I haven't really talked about what I produce and stuff. So I work a lot with color. Color is a big part of my work, as well as geometry. And I'm pretty old school. When I was showing you around my studio, there was like watercolors on my pinboard. I work with my hands and everything by hand. I don't really use computers at all. So I kind of sketch things out. The colors, sometimes there's references, architecture, for example, but sometimes there isn't. And recently it's just been colors that I've wanted to kind of play with. Yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Dalia. That's fantastic. It's amazing to have the opportunity to see your process for getting the loom and the weaving set up, and also to hear about your kind of the determination to make what you want to make, and not be pulled into these other directions as you move through your practice. I'm sure we'll be able to come back with some questions, but I'll just pass it over to Jackie next. Thanks, Jackie.
Hi, how are you doing? I'm Jackie Oliver, and I work in metal. And so, like Tessa and Dalia, I also went through the route of doing a foundation course, and then on my foundation course, I tried all different areas. I went into the textile area, and then my tutor said that I worked really slowly, and they wanted me to be big and bold and exciting, and I liked working in a really small, intricate way. And so they then said to me, maybe I should do jewelry, but I thought that jewelry was just gold hoop earrings, because that's all I wore. So I thought that was quite not very creative. So I was really disappointed about the suggestion. And I'd also been shown how to use metal in a really rough, crude way. So it seemed to me like the worst way that you could possibly spend the rest of your life. So, but I went and chose a jewellery degree that allowed me to work in lots of different materials. And I worked in resin and rubber and textiles and glass. But on the first day, we got shown how to use metal. And I'm going to walk you over to my workbench. I got shown how to use one of these, which is a jewellery saw. And as soon as I got shown how to use one of these, it allows you to cut really neat, precise shapes. And I absolutely fell in love with metal. And I also got shown how to use a soldering torch and really loved it. So this is my workbench with all my tools. And this is my workshop, which has got, I'm really lucky. I got a bursary last year. I had worked at home for about 25 years, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And then a friend got a bursary at Cockpit, and I thought, oh, it would be good to get the business support that we have here. And so I applied. There was a bursary for working with wire, and that seemed really applicable. As you can see, I didn't realise quite how linear my work was till I set it up in the studio here. So when I was at college, I worked in all different materials, did enjoy metal, worked for a jewellery shop whilst I was doing my degree, and that completely transformed what I make, because I was seeing everyone buying small little bits of jewellery and thinking, that doesn't offer me the creative idea of what I really want to do. So my work got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then when I finished my degree, I thought, well, this isn't going to be very sellable. I'll go and do an MA. And I did an MA at the same place that Tessa did hers. And I thought, they'll make me work in a really commercial way. And instead, my work got bigger and bigger and bigger still. And when I finished, I did a blacksmithing course, and there's a piece over here that's working with large scale steel that you hammer to shape and form it. And I really, really loved working with that. So I then did some more short courses. I did silversmithing and enameling, and alongside learning more, my main practice was applying for exhibitions, doing residencies, and I'd never heard of a residency before I saw one in a job advert, and I thought, what's that? And it's just basically, I'm doing residency at the moment in Islington, where I get a studio where I can't do metal work, but I can do drawing, and I go and make. I do workshops. I did a workshop with men in sheds yesterday. I've done workshop with youth offenders in schools, with families, and I love working with people. I love hearing about their ideas. And it was interesting that Dahlia was saying that she was wanting to do history, because I didn't do history at school, but loads of my projects at the moment, I'm looking at the history of an area called Bunhill. I've looked at the history of horses and agriculture. I've looked at here's a piece that was created to commemorate the 70th anniversary of D-Day, and I went into a museum and I spoke to different people about their memories, and someone brought in a drawing that their dad had done, and then I got some military badges and got someone's handwriting about their memories. So history has somehow become a really important part of my work. I also work with scientists. I worked with some scientists at Exeter University at the beginning of this year, doing a project where they wanted to explain how microsporidia parasites work. And I couldn't say that before the project, but they explained it to me, and I made some pieces that showed how the cells grow, and that was a really interesting project. So my work gets me to takes me all around the country. I've worked from Teignmouth in Devon to Aberdeen, going around just making. And when I was at school, I was told that, you know, you can't make a career as an artist. And I was really lucky that I was hoping to be a greengrocer, work in my parents' shop, and then my brother beat me to it. And someone in the shop said, well, why don't you go to art school? And I was like, well, what's that? I didn't even know what A-levels were. I didn't go to the most academic school. And so I did A-level art, did foundation, and haven't stopped learning yet. I'm applying for a scholarship so I can carry on learning. But my son was saying that he never wanted to be an artist because he thinks that I work too hard. But actually, I explained to him, if I wasn't working, this is exactly what I do in my free time. This is my absolute passion. I love what I do, and I love the teaching. Someone came for a tour around the workshop and they said, oh, do you do your teaching to support your practice? And I don't. I gave up teaching for 4 years because I used to commute all around the country teaching, and I've got a family, and I thought, oh, I'm going to stop traveling. And then I really missed it. I teach on 2 foundation courses, and I do short courses and workshops. And like Tessa said, it's really inspiring to see how other people look at different ideas. And it also makes me think about how I'm making different things. So, yeah, that's what I do. I do make, one thing that I think is important to show you in my workshop is when you are studying or making, it's really important to test ideas, and not everything works. So this section here is what I call my wall of doom, but it's not doom at all. It's all the pieces that didn't quite work at the moment. And I hang them up and I have a look at them. And then at the moment, I'm going back to shapes and reconfiguring them and just testing out ideas. And that thing of most of my projects, I'll start with one idea and it comes out completely different. And that's what I love about the making process. Sometimes I apply for commissions, and one time I got a response. Someone phoned me up and said, we really love your work. We really love what you offered the project, but we don't know what you were going to make at the end. We couldn't visualize it. And I said, well, then you've definitely given it to the right person, because I don't know what I would make. For the Bun Hill project, I'm just playing around with lots of ideas. It's brilliant. So yesterday I made this piece. I've been looking at playing cards. I've been looking at maps. I've been just having fun. So that's my job, really. Which yes, that's it.
Thank you, Jackie. I think we'll bring all the panelists back up to the conversation, and then we'll have a moment to answer any questions. If you have any questions, you can put them in the Q&A, or you can email them to discover@screenskills.com. And we have a short time this morning, but if you do send your questions over to discover@screenskills.com, we'll see if we can also answer some of them as a follow-up, just because we are limited on time this morning. A question that Jackie's presentation has made me think about, that would be interesting to hear from all of you. We've talked about that kind of balance of different work to support your craft and your skill, but it'd be interesting to hear. You know, I think making is so personal, and there's something amazing about following your passion as your career. But any insights you have into how you balance that part of making that is very personal and sort of precious to you, with it being something that you also turn into a business, into a career, into income, and any advice for, I guess, that delicate balance of following your passion, but also turning your passion into work, which is a challenge. Does anyone have any thoughts to share?
I think that I've been really I mean, when I've got some work back from a gallery and put it up and thought, well, I have been really busy making this year. I think that when I started off, I looked for commissions and I applied for them. And the balance was completely wrong. So I would spend most evenings writing applications, and then I would spend 2 or 3 days in the workshop, and then I would teach for a couple of days. But I found I looked at my time and I thought, well, I'm spending all this time writing, but now I've both by applying to commercial galleries, that may want to see work that actually exists. So I had it took a little bit of time to build a body of work that then I could offer to the galleries. But I think it is you need to work out, you know, whether some people love writing, some people love ideas and just waiting for those specific projects. But now I feel really, really lucky that I've got the opportunity to work for specific projects. And also, so one project will when one project finishes, I then take those ideas and just play with them, and those are what go off to the commercial galleries.
Thanks, Jackie. Tessa, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to add to that. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I mean, I would say for me personally, not to think about money and income, because as soon as you do, it stifles everything that you're doing. And I would say, but that's what's helped me, is not to focus on that, and to focus on, you know, doing what you enjoy, doing what makes you happy, you know, managing your time effectively, yeah, and you know, working hard but also having some downtime. But yeah, I mean, what has been helpful for me is to you know, to have a diary, and to really, you know, pencil in times when I am going to be in the studio, and also, you know, put all your work hours of where you're working elsewhere in that diary, and really manage your time effectively. That's what I found helpful. But I would say also in the beginning, don't worry about not earning loads from what you love doing. And I would say have a day job or a part-time job alongside doing what you love, and keep, you know, putting in the hours towards what you love and what you're doing, even though it might not be giving you that income. Have the part-time job or the other job to support what you're doing. I mean, this is how I've worked, and not to focus too much on the income, because it really does come as a result of you putting in the hours of what you love doing. It really does come. And find ways. I mean, I think that's the hardest thing I find, is balancing my time as making and producing a body of work that isn't bringing in income straight away, but I know will lead to income in the long term, as well as earning the, you know, the bread and butter, so to speak, income that allows you to survive. So I think for me, that is the hardest balance, juggling those two. And I think every single creative is wearing many hats, as we all do, you know, having sometimes multiple jobs, and I think, you know, in a way that's nice, because you're never going to get bored, you're never going to feel unchallenged, you're always going to be growing, and everything you do is teaching you something and leading you to grow, and helping you to develop where you want to be in the long term. So I would say, yeah, not to focus on the income, and to have a part-time job that supports what you love doing, and, you know, work hard and play hard, are what I can suggest. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Tessa. And Dahlia, anything to add to that wisdom?
Yeah, I think kind of like Tessa said, like, don't focus too much on the money, because that's what I did, and that's why I went down the kind of cushions and throws route, because I was like, oh, those kind of things sell. But yeah, it wasn't what I wanted to do at all, and I just felt really depressed, kind of. So yeah, I think take your time. And one of the things I learned about at Hot House was the idea of a portfolio practice. So you're not just doing one thing. You might be doing your making, you might be teaching, you might be kind of, I don't know, doing some consultancy work, and also have a part-time job in the industry or in another industry, and kind of that's the kind of way I've approached it, because I had a part-time job for a long time and was just kind of doing my making on the side, until now. I also have it's hard juggling your time, because I've got a son, a toddler, who just turned 2. And actually, for my interview for the award that I'm on here, I had to bring my son with me. He was like, I think he was like 9 months old or something, and yeah, I had to bring him in the buggy with me. So that's like, motherhood is another kind of hat. And then I'm also a director of my partner's garden design business, so I've got like a million jobs. So it's, yeah, I find like, well, I'm a list maker anyway, but I use like a Gantt chart. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. So to kind of plot out the days that will be in the studio, and when, you know, anything else that's kind of going on, if I've got a commission on, to see kind of how long it will take me, or what kind of, if I've got a deadline to work, it allows me to work backwards to see like when I need to start doing kind of each kind of section and stuff, and just know everything that I've got on at the moment. So now I'm doing a commission, but we've got open studios coming up. I'll have Collect next year that I'll need to kind of produce some new work for my gallery, and I've got a workshop coming up in January for Batsford Gallery. So I've got kind of all of those things in the chart, so that I can kind of, I've got a brain like a sieve, so if it's not written down somewhere, then I tend to forget it. So I've got all of those things on there just to kind of manage what I'm doing. So yeah, it is. But I think the biggest thing that I would tell people is that it's not a race, and some people, when they leave uni, they'll get picked up by a gallery. Whatever they're doing will be like the zeitgeist, and you know, they'll kind of fly off. But for most people, that's not how it is. So yeah, I graduated in 2012, and I'm only really starting to make some money now in 2023. So, you know, it can take a while.
Thank you.
I think one thing that I also think is that what Dahlia said, it's the part-time jobs is you know, most people do that, but I think that if you can at all find a part-time job that relates to your practice, or what you think your practice could be, you know, I think while I was doing my degree, the fact of me working every Saturday in a jewelry shop supported me through university, but it also was brilliant because it really cemented the idea that that's not what I didn't want to be making for that field. But working for different jewelers has taught me absolutely amazing technical skills and business skills. So I think if there's a possibility of doing any part-time job that has some relation to what you're interested in. I also was really shocked when I first applied for my teaching job that the job that I had done as a student working at breakfast club and after school clubs was really important. And, you know, and I've carried on working with school children since, just because I enjoy it. So, yeah.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, everyone, for staying with us this morning. I think we're going to have to draw this to a close now.